Hey. Welcome back.
Time to talk about a fave.
The house on Maple Street. I'm really excited to talk about this one. I'm going to talk about this one a lot, I feel like. Oh, it's by Sandra Cisneros. She came and spoke she spoke in Raleigh like a couple months ago. Didn't go.
Should have.
Anyways, I read this book in middle school, which is wild. Like, considering like what we've discussed about this book, the social issues that are behind it, it's insane. And like, it was crazy because we really didn't cover like literally, we didn't even scratch the surface. We didn't even scratch the surface. So let's just like
let's dive right in. Yeah, let's get like.
We said it for every video, but like, let's
my name, it really kind of sets the what's going on.
Or the tone of like the main character in this book, like it really sets up like her personality.
Because you have Esperanza, and like it, like we talked about, like throughout the book, she's constantly kind of dreaming of this other life, and like she wants a house of her own, not a room of her own, and like okay, so we're gonna talk about the imagery in this. It's wild. So we talked about how a lot in like our videos, and especially in our class, how important names are to like our identity as like people, and how like taking away a name is just like it's so terrible. And it was so interesting to like read this book and like read this section, and it's like about a character who wants to change her name. She wants her name to mean something else, and it's so, doesn't mean that in here. I don't know, it's so weird to like not feel like you identify with your own name.
And it's funny because in the past couple videos that we've talked about, we've had characters whose names keep getting changed, and like the importance of like having that kind of identity, and she is so ready to just change her own identity that the first thing she wants to do is change her name. And so we kind of get a story of what her position is in her, about her own like identity in her life.
Yeah, it says a lot for her character. We'll read this section. In English, my name means hope. In Spanish, it means too many letters. It means sadness. It means waiting. It is like the number 9, a muddy color. It is the Mexican records my father plays on Sunday mornings when he's shaving, songs like sobbing.
Oh, yeah. In the Catholic faith, when you get baptized, you actually take on a saint's name. So when you're baptized, you get like renamed after something a lot better, or like a lot more pure, and just like something that symbolizes like an idol that you kind of like wish to become, and like you guide yourself to act more like, I guess.
Yeah.
And so basically by
talks
saying that
about
she was
that.
baptized, yeah,
she says, I would like to baptize myself under a new name, a name more like the real me that nobody sees. And it really kind of like harkens back to that, like more like the person that she wants to be, and like baptizing under, like when you're like, I guess in the Catholic faith, like baptizing, you're trying to become more like that person.
Yeah.
Very interesting. We didn't plan that.
That was good. This chapter is just really important, just because, or this section, I guess, is just really important because you get that kind of feel for exactly what her position is in her life.
And it kind of sets up, like, it's kind of the first time you see like many women sit their sadness on an elbow, and it talks about her great-grandmother looking out the window, and that is an image we see a lot throughout the novel, like how many times we see women framed in windows in this book in particular, but also in like other books that we studied, like The Handmaid's Tale, Jane Eyre,
Jane
Yellow
Eyre,
Wallpaper,
literally all the books that we talked about, actually, like Jane Eyre, The Yellow Wallpaper. We have, like just constantly women sitting near windows, and kind of like that's kind of their spot.
Offred's constantly looking out her window. Like, it's very interesting that she actually has a window. I'm pretty sure, it's barred still, but yeah, it just goes back to the idea of women being trapped in, literally like they're trapped inside, like when you think of a woman trapped in a window, like they're trapped inside this domestic sphere, and like it goes back to her name meaning hope in Spanish, like they're hoping for this life they can't reach, and it really has to go with like liminality of like the women in these novels, like they're like stuck in this, and they want to be out there, but they're still in here. just really goes back to that. In the book, we like meet Sally, who she's like trapped in her house. Like her father's super oppressive and like abusive, and like she runs away and gets married before like the 8th grade. And she's married to this salesman guy who's like a total douche, and he doesn't let her leave the house. He locks the doors. He doesn't even let her look out the window, which is really interesting. We see like all these images of women looking out windows and how like that's like the only amount of freedom they have, and even then he's taken that away from her. She has to look literally down at the floor, at like the linoleum floor, or like at the walls, which is like yellow wallpaper.
Next we can talk about Alicia Who Sees Mice. This one was my personal favorite one. We had talked about it in class a little bit about what its overall meaning was, and I did not catch on of any of this. I am really glad that we had this discussion in class because I think it resonated, but like I
really cleared things up.
Yeah, it cleared things up for me, and it made it more important to me, and it made me almost love it a little bit more just because of how well done this chapter was done.
Definitely, like this girl's like Alicia's like fear of mice is like actually like a fear of the nighttime, and like her father, who you like learn by the end, is like definitely sexually abusing her, and it's like dangerous for her, and that's like why she stays up to study and stuff, like so kind of to keep her dad out of her bed, and it's really just devastating to like.
It's really sad, and that's the only glimpse we get of this girl in this entire story. And I think it's just kind of like a wake up call, I guess, for people who are like, I don't know, who are stuck almost, and they don't really have anywhere to go, and the only thing that she has to look forward to is her studies, and she has to stay up all night long to just kind of avoid this part of her life that she really cannot stand for good reasons. But
the bedroom is like a place of vulnerability for her, like for everyone. Like everyone's bedroom is like their safe place, but it really sucks. It's like I mean, it can't be for her. Like even if it is a place of vulnerability for her, it's taken away because of like her father. And you see like a lot of like interesting relationships with fathers in this. Like also like the language in this section, it's very fragmented. It's like fragmented alliteration. That's what I have in my notes here. I can't hear what's going on. But like the last line, so Alicia is a good girl, my friend, studies all night and sees mice, the ones her father says do not exist, is afraid of nothing except four-legged fur and fathers. So like four-legged fur and fathers. So she's like really projecting her fear of her father onto like these mice, and he's really kind of taking away, he's like, oh, it's all in your imagination, like really diminishing like her voice here. Like he's like, you're imagining it. So
that's just I think it's very beautifully written, and I guess my favorite part, honestly, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna take this from you. And I think my favorite part was the introduction and first line, literally, or the first paragraph, I guess, is just close your eyes and they'll go away. Her father says, you're just imagining. And even like that is just kind of saying like, yes. Even this first line, like saying like close your eyes and they'll go away, like close your eyes, pretend like this isn't happening, kind of like covering up himself.
It's like we talked about in class how close your eyes and think of England.
Queen Elizabeth and her daughter.
Yeah, it's kind of like that whole thing. Like, don't think about it.
Don't think about it.
Don't think about it. It's not happening.
Don't think about it.
Sucks.
And then it says, and anyway, a woman's place is sleeping so that she can wake up early with the tortilla star, the one that appears early just in time to rise and catch. The hind legs hide behind the sink, beneath the four-clawed tub, under the swollen floorboards, nobody fixes in the corner of your eyes. And it's just a very, very, very sad and detailed reflection of her abuse that her father's giving her. And when you first read it, I guess, and you don't like read the rest of it, and if you haven't really caught on to what's going on here, kind of like I did, I guess, the language is just like, it's still really sad, and you kind of get an image of like she's stuck and she can't do anything about it, and she's trying
to make it like by going to school and like make a different name for herself. I guess no pun intended or whatever on the name thing. And she's really trying to make a life for herself that's outside of that, which is
sad, but it gives hope, I guess. Like she's dealing with it and she's struggling, but you know she still believes in herself and just trying to get it done. So
yes. Now we're going to talk about Papa who wakes up tired in the dark, and honestly this one was just really tender. Like it was really sad, and like I feel like it's a super relatable. You really like get an idea for like Esperanza's relationship with her father, and also like you understand like we talked about before in like one of the earlier videos, like how like it really just is touching to like see your father cry because of like this idea of masculinity and then like being expected to keep it together.
Like there's really no excuse for these men in her life to be any different than her dad. Her dad's showing her that like it's okay to be like this and like this is a good thing, you know what I mean? Like it's not scary and it's not weird for her to see this. Like she just, it's normalized, I guess, which is a really good step in the toxic masculinity progression that we have.
It's just a really tender and wholesome kind of thing, and it's just so sad.
It's
like,
so sweet though. Like she holds him instead of him holding her.
It's
like,
just really,
she's really
great.
It's so great.
And it's really interesting to see like her relationship with her father compared to like all the other like father-daughter relationships throughout the book.
Yeah.
And like the male relationships in the books. It's a breath of fresh air.
It really is. And you kind of need that with a book filled with so much angst and sadness and just kind of like a lot of lessons. Like this is like a good one, and this is like something that obviously she values and she's gonna take a lot away from just because her dad's like this.
Now we're gonna talk about 4 Skinny Trees. Take it away, dude.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I had more of a different interpretation of this than what we kind of discussed in class. I really felt like, I mean, I guess I just thought that the trees were kind of like we talked about how they reflected her, but they were also talking about the other girls as well, like in the story, that like she's comparing like her and the 4 girls, like her and the 4 friends, I guess, to these trees that are just kind of placed, like put in a place where they don't really belong. I kind of took this as more of like her growth, and like just I thought this was really more interesting towards her. Like she's actually having a moment with these trees and is like relating to them in a way that she feels like she's only trapped and like she's, you know, the only one that like can't get out, and she doesn't want this for herself. She was just kind of thrown into this situation, and I feel like that's where this was coming from. But I mean, I just kind of took this as like a really sweet and like bittersweet moment, I guess, that she's having with these trees, about again being put into a place where she doesn't really want to be, and she kind of
it's like where she belongs but not where she belongs. And I mean, which we did talk about in class. I mean, you said like it's different, but like it's definitely about like a section about belonging and but not feeling like you belong. And
understanding, like, even with the roots of these trees, that like your roots will always be where they're at, and you can't really forget about that, if that makes sense.
And like a lot of people try and cut their roots, like get away from their life, but it talks about this here, but also like in the section later about like the 3 ladies that like represent like the 3 faiths and stuff. Like she's not going to, like we talked about in class, like she will not grow by cutting her roots, which is, I mean, true.
It is true. You have to remember where you came from. I cannot emphasize that enough to anybody. Always remember where you came from. And I think that that's really important that she's acknowledging that with these trees, and kind of taking that into consideration with where she thinks her life is going to go. Now, finally, let Hannah go off here.
My favorite section, the monkey garden. Shit slaps. It's just okay. So like the whole thing, like the language in it is like absolutely stunning. Like just, I mean, and it really sets it up parallel to the Garden of Eden. Like the language is incredibly like Edenic, and like it talks about like fall and everything.
It sets up this really great tone for the situation that's about to go down, I guess, or that's about to occur. Like it just kind of puts like when you think like Garden of Eden, like you know what's gonna happen, and it's just like a fall that you know is gonna happen in some character's life, in some situation that's about to happen. Like you just know what's gonna kind of happen, and like the way that she's describing this garden and with how beautiful it is, and like with all the birds and the bees buzzing around and like all these beautiful plants growing, like you just get the we're done here.
I'm just gonna
you just get this really great sense of kind of like what you're about to like,
you know, like it kind of like it like foreshadows like the end of the chapter almost, or a section. And I mean it really does start to like you like see like the progression of like the corruption in the fall here. Like we talked about in class, like you mix in like the weeds to like all the beautiful growth and stuff, like the flowers, and you start mixing in trees and dead cars and parts and like windshields being missing and all this stuff.
And mushrooms.
And like all this stuff, which is like decay and stuff like that. And so it really starts like broaching into like this corruption. And then you bring in like the actual like characters of like Sally and these boys who like go off. Like these boys are definitely taking advantage of her, and Esperanza like feels like
she needs to help. Like you have this like really proud moment of Esperanza when she tries to run and get help, and when the boys' mothers are just like, okay, and then you kind of like have this feeling of like really terrible sadness for her, because like she is innocent still, and I feel like this, like kind of like in the Garden of Eden when Eve is still very innocent and pure and, you know, like everything with God, and then, you know, the snake kind of comes and she really realizes
it's something she doesn't understand.
Yeah, she doesn't get it, and
like
then she finally has to
is something
understand.
she does not understand. Just like, you know, it was a joke. Like Esperanza says, like the flirting kind of was going on is like there was a joke that she didn't get. It was a joke I didn't get. Just like, you know, Eve, like when the snake was tempting her, she was never equipped to deal with the temptation of that.
So you kind of get that kind of symbolism through that garden. And then when everything does end up happening, like with Sally, and she sees, you know, like herself after the whole situation, she doesn't even like recognize herself anymore. Like it's kind of like a big character change for her. Like she doesn't recognize where she is, and she doesn't recognize like her own feet. And feet in this story is a really big thing too, but like she really like associates with her own feet, and she doesn't even recognize those anymore. After the like kind of symbolizing the loss of innocence, and you know,
and yeah, just like it talks about like the garden after she, like the fall, like after she's kicked out, like she's literally kicked out of this monkey like, garden, the Garden of Eden. So
these parallels, man,
the parallels are insane.
This text is really, really short, but it is really, really rich.
I literally finished it in like a sitting, like one sitting, and then like some change.
It didn't take long. But
it's just like, it's so good.
If anybody who hasn't read this book, like I hadn't heard of it until I took this class, I really advise that you take your time to read this. And it doesn't take long, so you could literally read it when your mom is driving you home from somewhere. I don't know.
Look how short the, oh well, that's it. I opened it to a really long page, but like
that's a chapter.
It's a chapter. Yeah.
That's a chapter. So like I just feel like you can do it, and you should.
If I can do it, and I'm taking like 3 English classes, you can do it. You can do it.
But anyways, thanks for watching. We really love talking about these books. So stay tuned for the next coffee shop that we try to find to deal with the awkward silences, deal with the weird people that are around us, and just kind of trying to dive into some different texts. So comment, like us, subscribe. Y'all have a good one.